Welcome to the Viking Age podcast, the official podcast of thevikingage.com. My name is Chris Schad. I write for the Viking Age, Puckett's Pond, and Zone Coverage. We do this every Monday with a late week episode right here on the Viking Age YouTube channel. We are also in podcast form on Apple and Spotify the very next day. But however you consume us, make sure you like, comment, share, and subscribe so you never miss a new episode and we can spread the word to the masses. Now, today's episode, Adam sent me a little text at the beginning of the week and he goes, we got Goff. We got Goff on the show. And I'm like, yes. Little did I not know it was not Jared Goff. It was Declan Goff of SKOR North. You could still chant your name, Declan, which is still beneficial, but I don't think you've heard it. So, but other than all the fake relation things going, welcome back to the show. How you doing, man?
I'm good, man. Every time the Vikings play Jared Goff, and it always seems like either the week leading in or out, I have to do like some type of customer service or some type of thing where I have to like obviously spell out my name, my last name specifically in Goff, and everyone, oh, like Jared. Yes, just like Jared. No relation, but it always seems to be like I have a dentist appointment, I think actually the day after on next Monday, and I can't wait to fill out that form. And when they say, oh, like the quarterback, yes, exactly like the quarterback.
The quarterback that just shredded us for 400 yards and like 5 touchdowns last night. That's great. That's great. I don't think you got a cavity here, but it just seems like a little,
I know.
No.
Yeah. It's the worst. Like nothing will make me more upset probably than a Vikings loss or ass kicking and then going to the dentist. So I've really upset myself up for a good 24-hour stretch there.
Well, it's going to be an intense kickoff there because I'm coming in and I'm thinking the Viking season might be on the line Sunday night in Detroit. In case you've been living under a rock, the Vikings are going to play the Lions for the NFC North title on Sunday night. Home field advantage in the NFC is on the line. Both teams are 14-2. I may argue that along with the division and home field advantage, the Super Bowl hopes are on the line, which is basically the, where we're at this point in the season. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, look, obviously home field advantage will be sweet. The Vikings have really never had that up until, in these runs of the NFC title games. And in my lifetime, 98 was the only one where they had it. And it does feel like, even though that would be the ideal route, and yes, I'm hoping for a win and a bye and making life a lot easier for the Vikings and their path there, but they also feel like a team that can go on the road and beat anyone. They really do, to me at least. And I know the path is harder. You're playing an extra game. You're out of your bed for, every week, most likely. I mean, there is a scenario where maybe they still get a home playoff game if seeds end up falling out and losing, or higher seeds falling out and losing. But I also just feel that they have the capability to go into most places and win, even on the road. But yeah, being at home, being in your own bed, not having to travel, not have to worry about any of that, that would make life a lot easier. And the NFC is, even though it's there's a lot of parity this year, there's not a scary team. And I think that's a good thing. Even though the Packers are going to be probably the 7th seed and the Commanders are going to be underneath whoever finishes second in the North, all these teams are good teams. All these teams are really fun, good teams. So I don't think there's anyone like in the AFC where there's just a stranglehold between the Chiefs and Bills where good luck against either of those two teams. In the NFC, I think it's really anyone's game.
I feel like this team, like in the past, you would look at the Vikings and be like, if they have to go on the road, they're screwed. Right. I don't know, Kirk might fight Mike Zimmer on the sideline. We might have 3 shank kicks or whatever. This team seems mentally tough. But I also look at this and I look at what the Vikings have created at US Bank Stadium. And there was a poll by ESPN's Ben Baby this week who polled 111 current players on the toughest places to play in the NFL. The top 3 places in the survey were Kansas City, kind of a duh moment, right. Seattle, also an obvious one, and Minnesota. And some of the quotes in there were pretty interesting. Darius Slayton, New York Giants wide receiver, he said, as soon as you walk in there, everything is purple. You feel like you're out of place there. That's what a good atmosphere does. It makes you feel like you're in the wrong place. Fred Warner, who played here back in week 2, I believe, the Vikings home opener. He said, they made me think differently about how I approach just being on the sideline, staying focused on the game and not worrying about everything else. Then there was an unnamed AFC South player who wished to remain anonymous that said, I heard that skull chant early and often, kind of scarred from that, but it's a cool place. AFC South play. I'm thinking that was Laramie Tunsil because he had like 6 penalties in that game.
Could be,
But
yeah.
I wouldn't want my name out there either if that happened to me. I mean, I look at this, and this NFC playoff format is daunting. Whether they, whether they can go out and win on the road is irrelevant to me because I want the easiest pass. I'm a Vikings fan. If there is any degree of difficulty, I know it's not going to go my way because if this was 1-2, I'd be okay if you lost this game because you get a home game in the wild card, the divisional rounds, you get a coin flip rematch against Detroit. If the Vikings lose this game, you got to go to Tampa Bay, who beat you to begin the 2023 season. Granted, they don't have Chris Godwin. Or you go and play Atlanta, who actually played you pretty evenly through 3 quarters and maybe even had a lead if Kirk Cousins wasn't focused on giving the ball away. You go back to Detroit in the divisional round, and then where's the NFC Championship game? Is it in Philly? Could you have to go back to Los Angeles and play the Rams where you lost earlier this year? I think looking at that, it's a pretty tall task, and it puts a lot of pressure on Sunday's game.
Totally. And, I know there's been a lot of talk of, should they reseed the playoffs? And I'm the big believer of, hey, if you win your division, I think you should be guaranteed a home playoff game. I don't think that there's anything wrong with that. If I was Roger Goodell or if I was able to change some of these rules, I think I would still keep that intact. But I think after that, you should be able to reseed. So, if the Vikings or whoever the 5th seed is, if they have a better record than the other team, like they should be able to get a home playoff game at that point. They went on the road, they did their job, they beat the home team that won their division. I do think there should be some reseeding. Obviously, that's not the case going into these playoffs and probably future seasons either. But at the end of the day, yes, it becomes more daunting if you have to go, for your example here, from Tampa Bay and then maybe into Philly and then again maybe into Detroit again. Like it's hard to do that on the road 3 consecutive weeks, and that's what's at stake for the loser of the Vikings Lions game. But at the end of the day, I just feel pretty good if they have to go on the road. It's great, and if they can sleep in their own bed and not have to worry about anything, get guys healthy, get guys in the right spot, and have that bye, and just not have to leave ever up until going to New Orleans for the Super Bowl. That obviously would be the path of least resistance.
And I feel too, I mean, before I get too far into the weeds here, Declan Goff is also the Minnesota Twins beat reporter covering a really exciting offseason for the local 9. Just can't wait till opening day. Oh boy. Anyway, but I mean, I bring that up because the NFL's kind of got like what baseball did in the early, 2010s when they adopted that second wild card game.
Yeah.
Because you had a moment where the Twins win that game 163 and like, what if we had a 163 every year? But I mean, not every game 163 is going to be the extra innings banger that you expect it to be. So now you have the NFL. They've had this playoff format since 2002, where the 4 division winners, they all get a home game. And then there's 2 wild card teams. They added a 3rd wild card team in 2020, I believe. So, the NFL saw the Saints, defending Super Bowl champion. They go to Seattle. They have to take on Marshawn Lynch. And everybody's like, this should be a breeze. And then they have the Beastquake run where Marshawn Lynch stiff arms 6 guys and like, holy crap, this is awesome. Why don't we have a team with an awesome record go take on a shitty, NFC South team every year? Like, this will be great. And I think that's where we're at right now. It's like the NFL wants to have that moment where they can bill it. They can go, the Minnesota Vikings have dominated all season, but now they have to go to Tampa Bay in a hostile environment. Can this bad team upset? And it's just kind of like, this is ridiculous, man. I mean, I'm not complaining. I'm just saying, I think that's what's going on here.
Yeah. And it does make more sense, in my opinion, in football. I mean, there's less games. Like I can see a path where a 1-game wild card, type of play-in situation, which the NBA now has, and baseball has kind of altered theirs. So now it's a series, which I also like. But yes, I do think they probably need some type of change. I mean, hell, I would be down, and I know this one's been thrown around before too. The 2 worst records should play each other in a playoff game for the rights for the number 1 overall pick. Like the Giants and Patriots should play each other, not be tanking, not be resting all their starters. They should be playing for something meaningful. I think it'd add an extra little era of drama there. I think there could be something there, but Right now, that's not the case. We'll see if they could maybe adopt something like that in the future, though.
I don't want to go too far off the rails, but how awesome would an NFL draft lottery be?
Yeah.
It would. I mean, my God, the conspiracy theories would be out of control, but they would be so damn fun. Just like, oh, Giants got the #1 pick, huh? That's interesting. That's awesome. NHL also not rigged because Connor McDavid plays in freaking Edmonton, but
Right.
I just want to throw that out. I want to get back quickly to the fact that I think this team is mentally bulletproof, and going on the road is kind of a tall task. But I looked it up. There have been 4 teams in NFL history that have made the Super Bowl, winning 3 road games to get there. The 1985 New England Patriots, they lost to the Bears, Refrigerator Perry running in the touchdown long time ago before either of us were born. The 2005 Pittsburgh Steelers lost to the Seattle Seahawks, beat the Seattle Seahawks in the Super Bowl. 2 years later, the New York Giants won 3 road games before beating the undefeated Patriots in the Super Bowl. And then in 2010, the Green Bay Packers beat the Pittsburgh Steelers in that Super Bowl in 2010. So the Vikings tried to do this from like 2018 until 2023, when they were like, just get in the tournament. You can flip the coin and see what happens. Right. And it didn't go so well. Do you think this team is a special instance because of the way they've played so far this year?
Yeah, I just look at how the number one, they've only lost 1 road game, and it was on a short week. Now they might have to play that team again in the playoffs and the Rams if that happens. That's still a path for the Vikings, but I just look at them and they've been able to go into Seattle and get a big win. They had a 4 touchdown lead on Green Bay. Granted, it was early in the season, but still, like, that's tough to do. I look at what they've been able to do on the road, and then Darnold just kind of being unfazed by a lot of things. Like, I don't know if his brain's been rewired, because like it doesn't seem like, and I mean this as a compliment, it doesn't seem like there's a lot up there with Sam Darnold between the ears. Like, I mean that as honestly as the most sincere compliment, because he's just unfazed by that type of thing. And I think that's Kevin O'Connell's doing and whatnot. But when you go on the road, and yes, like Vikings fans know going to Philly sucked, going into the Superdome, that was hostile, but also like they outplayed the Saints for 4 quarters. They turned the ball over 5 times. Like, that's the reason they lost. So I look at it and I look at the rest of the NFC, and if they have to go on the road, like a first round matchup with Tampa, first round matchup with a rookie quarterback in Atlanta, SoFi Stadium isn't a hostile place either. It's almost a visiting home game in a lot of situations. But, having to play Stafford and McVay together, like that is probably their toughest place to go if they have to be the 5 seed on the road. That would be the one you'd probably sweat a little bit more than the other matchups. But in general, no, I just think they're very well tested, and they can easily win some playoff games on the road.
And it's like every time this team has run into a test, they haven't just like won by the skin of their teeth like they did in 2022. They've like thrived. We went into a big game against Atlanta, and we're like kind of like, oh, Kirk's coming. We might get the new nightmare coming in. Sam Darnold throws for over 300 yards and 5 touchdowns. I got some Sam Darnold stats here in a little bit, so I won't go too deep into the weeds, but it's just like I wrote about this at the Noise. I've been writing some Detroit Lions stuff at the Noise since I've had some extra time on my hands. And 1 year ago, Dan Campbell talked about controlled fury. And it was right after the Lions lost that game to the Cowboys, cost them home field advantage. Everybody was pissed off. And Dan Campbell was just like, we've got controlled fury, man. I'm high octane. I'm ready to go. But it never was this out of control, caution to the wind like the Lions are now. It's a very, and even too, like the Lions last year, they were very methodical. They were calculated. They simply made the play when it needed to be made. That's what this team does. It's like every time they miss some plays. There are times too where you watch the game and you go, man, Sam Darnold should have found Aaron Jones on that touchdown instead of forcing the ball. You can nitpick things, but you can also look at this team and go like, whenever they need a play, they've been able to come up and get it. And I think that's a style of football that not only helps you win at US Bank Stadium, it helps you win on the road. Look at Seattle, where Sam Darnold's playing on one leg and he throws a dart to Justin Jefferson. Theo Jackson gets an interception on the other end. Like, there are just so many examples of that controlled fury that have played to the Vikings' advantage. And I think that's another storyline you got to watch on Sunday. It's like, how are the Lions basically a Mortal Kombat player that doesn't know the combos and just smashes buttons? You know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. They're gonna live by the sword and die by the sword. I think that's another Campbell line too. Look, the Vikings aren't as gutsy as Dan Campbell is. I should maybe say Kevin O'Connell isn't as gutsy as Dan Campbell is. He doesn't go for it on fourth down a ton. He's not gonna, dial up a lot of trickery and random things to work against his team. He trusts his defense. I wouldn't say he's conservative either. It's just that he doesn't have and almost no one really does have the fortitude that Dan Campbell has when it comes to going for it in situations like that. But the Seattle game is a perfect example. Like that literally was a playoff game. It was blow for 3 quarters. Weather was weird. Elements were weird. It wasn't. It was murky. It wasn't as fluid as it has been for other games for the Vikings this year. And then in the fourth quarter, you took things over and dominated. And look, there's been times this season where like the Vikings have had healthy leads. Both Packers game come to an example where they have healthy leads and then they let the team back in a little bit. And then you're sweating in the last possession of the fourth, whether it's on offense or defense. But mostly these playoff games are going to have a similar feel like it did in Seattle, where it's going to be probably very close. You're going to be gripping your TV remote or beverage really hard. But at the end of the day, I think the Vikings are going to be the ones that more likely than not, come out as the winner, because that's how playoff games are played. Like it's not playing, the Houston Texans in week 3 and boat roasting them for 4 quarters and they're out of the game before, the first quarter's done with. It's going to be testy and it's going to be stressful, but that's part of it.
Well, we'll get into a little bit more about the Vikings and Lions in just a second, but if the stress of competing for home field advantage is not enough for you, may I suggest getting in on the action at Underdog, because it is the best place to cash in on all of your takes during the playoffs. With over 5 million happy players and $2 billion won, Underdog makes it fun and easy to cash in on all of your favorite athletes' performances. With their pickup game, you could win up to 1,000 times your money just by choosing higher or lower on your favorite player stats like yards, touchdowns, and interceptions. And they've got all of your favorite teams, leagues, and stars to choose from. And Underdog is the only pick'em platform that puts the power to cash out in your hands. They also have rescues, which means that if a player gets hurt early in a game, you can get your money back and you receive a promo if your early injury causes you to lose. I've been an Underdog player for a few years, and last night I jumped on just to see what was going on, and they gave me a promo. I got a discount for Jamar Chase's receiving yards, so I took the higher on that for this weekend. And I also went on higher on Justin Jefferson receiving yards because, spoiler, I don't think the Lions have enough to stop him on Sunday. So if I hit on both, I get 3 times my money just like that. And it's why Underdog is the best place to play pick'em. Download the app, sign up with the promo code THEAGE, it's all one word, and deposit now to get up to $1,000 in bonus cash instantly. That's promo code THEAGE, all one word, to get up to $1,000 in bonus cash instantly. You must be 18 years or older, 19 years or older in Alabama and Nebraska, 19 years or older in Colorado for some games, 21 years or older in Massachusetts and Arizona, and present in a state where Underdog Fantasy operates. Terms apply, void in Colorado for some games. If you are concerned with your play, call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit www.ncpgambling.org. Or in Arizona, call 1-800-NEXT-STEP or text NEXT STEP to 53342. And in New York, call the 24/7 Hope line at 1-877-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369. All right, Sunday night football, 7:20 p.m. kickoff on NBC. Mike Tirico, Chris Collinsworth, and Melissa Stark on the call. And the Lions are currently favored by 2.5 points as of Thursday afternoon. Injury quick update. Aaron Jones and Harrison Smith were both limited on Wednesday. It looks like they're going to be ready to go. David Montgomery and Alex Anzalone did not practice on Wednesday either. They look like they're unlikely to play, but the Lions do look like they're going to get back Khalif Raymond, who was a full participant with a foot injury. I want to go back to the October meeting because I was at the game. It was awesome. Great energy. Exhibit A, why I would love for the Vikings to have home field advantage. But my feeling walking out of that game was that the Vikings were coming to collect a debt in week 18. And little did I know that the title would be on the line, home field advantage, all of that stuff. But it just felt like there were little plays that the Vikings left on the field. How close do you feel like the Vikings were to winning that game? And how do they kind of make up that margin here going into Sunday's game.
Yeah, I mean, the Ivan Pace play was huge. Like if they don't get that play, that game probably actually isn't as close as it is. And I still would have probably tried the field goal from 70 yards before the procedural penalty that took place that backed them up. And then they had to go for the Hail Mary. That was a fun blow for blow game. Like that is how NFL games are played. The Vikings for sure had a chance to win. I don't know if they were in the driver's seat ever to run away with that game. But I mean, it took a miracle kick from Jake Bates just to beat the Vikings at the same time. So that's where, like, yeah, the Lions have been the kind of the toast of the NFC, and everyone loves them, and the aggressiveness from Dan Campbell, and yeah, they had a great running backs situation there with Montgomery and Gibbs. But their defense now is so fried and banged up that's the big reason why they're probably fraudulent at this point, because they've lost Hutchinson and they've lost so many players on defense. And not to say that the defense wins you championships. They're going to go for it on offense a lot. They're going to absolutely try to boat race teams. That's how the Lions will win. Like the Lions have a better chance to win a game 35-13 than trying to win a game 13-10. Like it's just that they're built to score a ton of points, but their defense is so vulnerable this time that, yeah, I mean, can the Vikings basically either match them, or does Brian Flores have a couple extra tricks up his sleeve to combat the Lions offense? That latter part might be a little bit too far-fetched because the Lions are really damn good on offense. But if that is the case, if Flores has a couple more answers than the last time they met, then I do think the Vikings probably win this game.
I kind of agree with the iceberg here, which, by the way, Declan's a big wrestling guy too. Like this sounds like a 1990s heel, you see on WCW Saturday nights or whatever. Dan Campbell has a few dumb meathead calls every game. Teams that capitalize on those win them. Look at San Francisco last year and Buffalo this year. Totally agree. I've been saying for weeks, Dan Campbell's been playing Russian roulette. Everybody's kind of waiting for him to find the bullet in the chamber and blow his own brains out. But also, too, that's how the Lions play football. Like, they don't know any other way. Back in 2022, they play the Packers at Lambeau Field. It means nothing to them because they're already eliminated. They go and they end the Aaron Rodgers era at Lambeau Field. Last year, too, the entire time they're calling those trick plays and everything else. They wind up getting to the NFC Championship game. And I know a lot of people kind of blasted Campbell for those fourth down calls late in that game. But if Josh Reynolds catches a football, they probably go to the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
So I do think, again, like I said, it's going to come down to one play. And I think when you look at the difference, the Vikings, you mentioned it a little bit, the Lions are hurt on defense and the Vikings are peaking offensively. And I think this is a huge game for Sam Darnold, because I went back and I looked at the big games for the Vikings this season, which, hype, expectations, you're playing a decent team or whatever. Just, I don't know how I arbitrarily figured it out. Maybe I cherry picked it, but here's what I look. September 29th against Green Bay, Sam Darnold, 275 yards, 3 touchdowns, and interception. October 20th against the Lions, 259 yards, a touchdown, interception. By the way, 81% completion rate. December 12th against the Falcons, 347 yards and 5 touchdowns. December 22nd at Seattle, 246 yards and 3 touchdowns, including the game-winning score. And then last week against Green Bay, 377 yards, 3 touchdowns, and an interception. In those games, Sam Darnold has averaged 300.8 yards per game, 15 touchdowns, and 2 interceptions. You mentioned a little bit, there's nothing up there, but I mean, it's in a good way. We're like Kirk's brain was like a Royal Rumble in his head at all times. Sam Darnold, I love the Ricky Bobby comparison that he had last week, because he very much is Ricky Bobby before all the endorsements and stuff. Like, my hands, what do I do with my hands? Like, it's perfect.
Yeah. He just doesn't seem phased. He's not double clutching. Like, he doesn't have the Kirk 2 ears, 2 hands over the helmet. And he's not going to be someone that checks down on fourth down. Like, he is the antithesis basically of what Kirk is. And, like a rumble comparison, like he's just trying to stay in the rumble. That's what Kirk's doing, anything possible to get the longest time in the rumble, but he's not going to win. He's just trying to be in there for as long as he possibly can. Darnold's going to come in there and do absolutely everything he can just to win the game. There's going to be some questionable things. He's going to put himself in danger a couple times, but more times than not, he's going to be successful in the areas he's supposed to be in. It's been awesome watching KOC basically unlock some of this stuff. I do think some of the things that he's been able to do is sustainable. I don't think that this is a magic carpet ride for Darnold. I think there's a really good quarterback in here. Maybe is he not like the sixth best quarterback in the NFL, even though he's certainly playing like one right now. There's clearly a really good quarterback here, and KOC has helped unlock that. And when you're a third overall pick, like he was from the Jets, and he had a bunch of accolades coming out, like it's different when Case Keenum pops up, has a magical year, and then reverts back. With Darnold, he was expected to be this, and now it just took him a little longer than normal, which is also, totally a normal thing to do in the NFL. I think we're learning about patience. Hopefully both him and Baker are examples of patience for teams when they're developing and drafting quarterbacks. But I think what he's been able to do, it's just, he goes in there, reads the plays. He goes to Kevin O'Connell when the headset goes out, and he looks at him and says, "What's the play?" Like all those type of things are unquantifiable sometimes in the statistics, and he's just continues to ball out every time he plays.
I loved what Alec Lewis wrote in The Athletic a couple weeks ago, where he said basically what Kevin O'Connell has told him is you have three reads. One, what's the concept of the play? So the primary read. Two, check it down. Or three, just get rid of it. Like those are your three options. Don't worry about, this or this. Three options. And if you have to get rid of it, it's whatever. And it's revitalized his career. He's come in. There's a bunch of bad takes on the internet. And now Sam Darnold, his value is at $34.5 million, according to Over the Cap. Spot Track also has a $35.4 million projection on their website, which both seem low, especially after the Kirk Cousins contract last year.
Right.
Especially if Sam Darnold wins this game. I mean, I've sworn off of this topic because the Vikings are 14-2. They're in a Super Bowl chase. But what are you doing with Sam Darnold and JJ McCarthy next year? Because I feel like that's what everybody wants to talk about right now.
Yeah, I mean, the franchise tag is the thing that probably ends up making the most sense. You pay Darnold a lot of money. You pay him about $40 million. And then JJ McCarthy is there in the wings in the event there's an injury or Darnold does significantly regress. The other one is to trade JJ McCarthy, which I don't think they'll do. I still think Kevin O'Connell believes him in enough, but like if the Vikings do go to the Super Bowl, or even hell, if he wins a couple road playoff games, they get the NFC title game, like I don't know how you don't bring him back. And it stinks when you franchise tag him because obviously it limits his market. There has to be kind of a handshake between Kwesi and the general and his agent, basically saying that, hey, I know we have now limited your market, but we're doing what's best for us. We're going to do what's best for Sam still. He gets to stay here at the very least. And if not, we get the right offer, we'll trade him. But I think they'll probably franchise Sam and let McCarthy stay here. Like I'd be pretty surprised if they gave Darnold a Baker-like contract and had McCarthy in the wings still, but that also could still be the case. Like people clown the Packers, and I didn't agree with the process of what they did with Jordan Love and Aaron Rodgers, but they were patient and they waited with Jordan Love. And yes, they paid him a boatload of money, but Jordan Love is really good. So, like, is that also a path with the Vikings where maybe you do sign Darnold for 3 years? And I know you're wasting the rookie scale money with McCarthy, but what if McCarthy ends up still being exactly how good he is? And, you always want to be able to capitalize on the rookie scale contract. That's why you drafted JJ. But it's not about looking at a 3-year window in his rookie contract. It's about looking at a long-term, can we be successful with this guy as our quarterback for 10 to 15 years? That's the dream scenario. It's not just winning Super Bowls and maximizing your roster in the rookie scale contract. That's certainly a big chunk of the pie, but the Vikings also have to weigh out those decisions too.
If you feel like you have that guy, you sign him. You just do whatever. And I mean, I've leaned toward let McCarthy play. Like I like what's behind door number 2, like see what happens. And it's Christian Ponder. This kind of sucks. But I have warmed up to the idea of keeping Darnold in 2025 on the tag. Maybe you work out in a short term, like 1 or 2 year deal, and then you make the deal or make a trade afterwards if you like McCarthy. I also think that if we hear reports that, Vikings didn't make a good offer, Vikings didn't make an offer, whatever, on Sam Darnold, I think that speaks volumes about JJ McCarthy, because when you have a guy playing at the level that Sam Darnold is playing right now, and you just say, no, we're good with our rookie, we're going to build around him and we're going to load up the roster. That is the biggest endorsement I think you could make, because he hasn't played a regular season game. We just have the preseason work to go off of. And remember too, at the beginning of training camp, JJ McCarthy, I wouldn't call it a full-blown competition, but I mean, there was at least a sliver of hope that he would have been the starter at the beginning of the year. So you look at all of those things combined, there's just a lot of factors that go into this decision.
Yeah. And we'll see where they fall with it. And I think KOC probably would have wanted Kirk Cousins back at the right price. I think he probably was the one maybe going to bat for Kirk than the other way around. But they also realized that it was time to move on. And KOC is just this quarterback whisperer, and maybe that is Daniel Jones as the extra insurance policy between the two. But I'm very fascinated to see how it plays out. It's going to be legitimately one of the NFL offseason has just turned into a year-long event essentially. But this is going to be probably the most fun talker post Super Bowl, whether the Vikings win it or not, between then and mid-March, because wherever this goes is going to be fascinating, because there's going to be a lot of talking heads on both sides, basically criticizing or plotting the Vikings for making the right decision at what they want to do at quarterback. And yeah, it's just gonna be a fascinating thing to watch play out.
And then you have people like Stephen A. Smith, who I was reading about this before we came on. He said today Sam Darnold hasn't thrown for 300 yards since Chicago. He threw for 347 against Atlanta, 377 against the Packers. So we talking Sam Darnold. We talking Slava Medved. We talking Sam Darnold. He got to play with LeBron. All right. Biggest concern against the Lions, we've kind of talked about it a little bit. I mean, their offense is insane. You don't really know what they're going to do. Let's just jump into the prediction. Vikings, Lions, NFC North title on the line. Who's coming out on top, Declan?
Vikings win. I do think the Vikings win this game. Probably a high scoring game. I think the over under is 57.5, which is insane for an NFL game. It's the highest number for week 18 by far in the NFL. It's probably going to be in both teams in the 30s, but I think the Vikings are going to be able to pull this out. I am fascinated how it goes. Like, let's say the Vikings are getting like boat race in the first half, and it is like literally 28-3 at halftime. Like, do you just punt at that point? Like, do you put in Nick Mullins? Like, I'm not saying you start the second half with Nick Mullins, but if that game gets out of reach pretty quickly, like I would hate for Jefferson to go down with 2 minutes in the third quarter when you're down 3.5 possessions. So I don't see the game playing out like that, but that is an area that I'm kind of curious to see if that does take place, with the Vikings kind of, we're rest assured. All right, the stinks. We're not going to have home field advantage, but now we have to look ahead kind of for next week. I know football coaches and teams always say we play one game at a time and we're not looking ahead, but that's a scenario that they do have to think about. I think the Vikings still win this game though, and it's going to be a blast. And yes, just hopefully there's not any scary injuries or any altering injuries to get someone like Jefferson or Cashman on the defensive side. But I think this is going to be a fight, and I think the Vikings come out on top.
I do find your theory, hey, what if it is a blowout, pretty interesting, because this is probably a sign of my current times with no job or no wife or no kids right now. But after the Sugar Bowl was canceled last night, I needed some background noise while I was working on some stuff. So I threw the old game on Madden and just added sim. Like, what's going to happen, Madden? And the Lions jumped out to a 28-10 lead at halftime, and they wound up winning 31-17. I don't think the game will be that far. I 2-score game would shock me in either direction.
Yeah.
But it is going to come down to two things. Who plays their game? Because the Lions play pedal to the floor. It's back and forth offensive battle. The Lions are going to win this game. If the Vikings can get some stops, make some plays at the right time, I think they win this game and they get home field advantage. I don't know, man. Maybe it's just like vibes or whatever, or aura as the kids call it. Vikings haven't had home field advantage since 1998. I think they run it back. I think the road to the Super Bowl goes through Minnesota. 31-28 Vikings. That's what, and I'm not going to flip it like I did last week, because I said on this show, the Packers are going to win. And then in the 5 bold predictions, I said the Vikings were going to win. 31-28 Vikings. I know Will Reichard's a little shaky right now. My tribal chief will come through with a late field goal for the win.
God, I hope so. And that now all of a sudden, like, you're a little worried about Will Reichard. Like, the body language wasn't great last week. I didn't really have a problem as much with the missing of the 55 yarder. Like, yes, kickers are making those as a norm now, but that's still a tough kick. You can't miss kicks inside 45 yards. Like, that is a absolute non-starter for me. I hate kickers. I can't stand them. I literally think it's the dumbest thing we do in sports, is that we decide games for one random guy who's good at this one random thing. Like, I don't understand why it's still a thing, but you hope that Will Reichard can make the ones he's supposed to make and make his extra points. And Vikings fans are too scarred from kicking problems, so hopefully Will Reichard reverts back to the good Will Reichard from earlier this year.
And it was weird too, because I was fully expecting them to say, hey, he's dealing with the quad thing again. We're going to let this thing cool down. There's been nothing this week. Nothing at all about it, because some of those misses were weird. He hit the post twice. The kickoff landed short of the landing zone. So it's kind of like, is this a mechanical thing? Is he compensating for whatever? I don't know. Just make your kicks. Yep. Let's just make this easy. Just make the kicks and we'll win the game. 2 things before I let you go, Declan. 1, what's going on at SKOR North right now?
Yeah, we're full steam ahead with Viking stuff. It's been great. It's been a really, really fun, honestly, last like 12 months for us at Purple Daily, as we wrapped up 2024 and now we're in 2025. Vikings have been when Vikings are good, it's good for business, and our vent lines have been obviously great. And having Thor Nystrom in the fold has been awesome. Having Jesse and Miles Gorham and Tyler Fornes have also been a great addition that we've been able to add at Purple Daily side. Then we're still pumping out content with the Wolves and the Wild, and when the Twins decide to make newsworthy things, I like to talk about that. That's a different story that I don't want to really bore people to tears with. But it's been a lot of fun. I had a lot of fun covering the team last year, despite the collapse. And yeah, it's been good. It's been a lot of fun. We have an event on Tuesday at Podrick's Brewing in Minneapolis that you can learn more info about by going to scorenorth.com. But yeah, we're having a good year. It's been a lot of fun. We're excited to hopefully go on a lengthy playoff run here.
Well, I was going to ask you for your in-depth analysis on Mike Ford signing with the Twins earlier today, but I think I'll hold off on that because there's more pressing honors. We are going into Royal Rumble season, Declan.
That's right.
So I ask you this usually. I'm going to ask you this again. What is your hottest wrestling take as we head into Royal Rumble WrestleMania season in the next couple of months?
I think hottest take would be, and this is coming from someone who loves this guy. I feel like he's very villainized and very polarizing because he was the face of the company after the Attitude Era. But I think it'd be a massive mistake to let John Cena win the Royal Rumble. I think it'd be a massive mistake. I know a lot of betting sites have him as the favorite. He's doing his farewell tour and run right now. I think that would be very much old Vince McMahon of, I'm going to put one random old dude and part-time guy over the top one last time. Now, I think there's creative ways to get Cena involved at Mania, still maybe even challenging for one of the 2 top titles. But they should put someone over that should be over. Like, personally, I know it's probably more predictable. I think Roman Reigns wins this Royal Rumble. Like, I just, it's setting up too perfectly for him not to win it. Obviously Seth and Punk are 2 capable guys. And then the curveball is like, who is the Gunther, who is the guy that we weren't expecting that will be in the last 2? Like, Gunther goes an hour plus 2 years ago and shocks everyone. Then it got on this massive push that he's on right now. We got to figure out who that person is, because it's never really just the favorites that you think of. I think Roman Reigns wins this damn thing. But I mean, it would be a massive mistake. I love Cena. Like, I love John. I think he gets a terrible bad rap with wrestling purists and old school Attitude Era fans, because he was different, cut from a different cloth, but he literally was the face of the company, and he's done so much good for the company still too. But I think letting him win that Rumble and have that moment, I think that would be just a massive mistake.
He's very much like John Cena is very much like Michael Jordan when I was growing up. Like, I know a lot of people love Michael Jordan and I totally get it, but like when he was good in his prime, I completely hated the guy. And then, I think he had an all-star game or something where they played all his highlights and stuff. And I'm like, you know what? That was pretty damn cool. I think after a while, when Cena went to Hollywood and he was away for a little bit, everybody kind of got off the whole Cena sucks thing and be like, man, he was like in the center of all of these good moments.
Right.
I agree with you with the part-time thing, because my pick to win the Rumble is John Cena. I think that's the direction they're going. But also, too, you go back to 2020 and it was the lost run. So I guess it would have been 2021 because it was a pandemic Rumble. But I think Vince's plan was to do Charlotte Flair and Edge as the winners of the Rumble. And they went to him. They're like, you're not making any new stars. Like, what are you doing here? So then they pivoted. The rumor was they pivoted and they went to Bianca Belair, who's now like the John Cena of the women's division.
Yeah.
I think they need to find, like you said, the other guy that goes into the Rumble and just does, is it Braun Breaker? Does Braun Breaker enter at 2? And is he like one of the last guys there? Like, there are a lot of guys in that mid card that could use the Rumble to elevate them going into WrestleMania season. And that's why I'm excited. I mean, I think it's going to be a fun lead to WrestleMania. You got The Rock hanging out somewhere. You don't know if he's going to be involved or not. Like, there's just a lot of moving parts. And I like the unpredictability heading into this time of year.
Yeah. I mean, like, I get why someone like Cena would get a big push. But to your point, like, can Braun Breaker be that person? Can Jey Uso be that person?
Yeah.
Like, Jay has been on that cusp. I mean, literally they've changed his name to Main Event Jey Uso, but he still has yet to really get the main event spotlight per se. So who is that person? And that's always the fun one to figure out when you're watching the Rumble unfold, because there's always a surprise person like that. But I love Cena. He'll get a huge pop. I hope he kicks some ass. But yeah, I don't think it'd be the wisest. It'd be very, very, very against this new era of Triple H running the show, where putting over Cena for that moment out of just necessity and respect. I don't think they'll go that route.
I don't think I can have a wrestling segment without at least saying yeet once. A lot of people are like, oh my God, what just happened? Anyway, he is Declan Goff. He is at Dex Tweets. You can follow him on X. You anywhere else? Instagram?
I'm on Instagram. I have a Blue Sky. I've been very seldomly posting on it. I got to post on it more. But yeah, nope. Dex Tweets on Twitter sphere. That's where you can follow a lot of my stuff, and Purple Daily on Twitter as well, Facebook. We have our own kind of silos now of TikTok and Instagram pages too. So we've kind of taken all of our shows and made them their own TikTok and YouTube channels, which you can go find by just searching the show's name. So Flagrant Howls, SKOR North Twin Show, Purple Daily, etc. All those have kind of their own little silos now. You can follow us there. That's the best place to find us. And then on YouTube as well, Purple Daily, SKOR North, and then also the Twin Show has its own YouTube channel too.
You can basically find them on any social media medium that you've forgotten about.
That's right.
Yeah, like I have Blue Sky too, but I never remember about it. It's like, all right, I'll just throw this on X. But I am at The Real Schad, of course. We do this show every Monday with a late week episode right here on the Viking Age YouTube channel. We're also in podcast form on Apple and Spotify the very next day. But however you consume us, make sure you like, comment, share, and subscribe so you never miss an episode and we can spread the word to the masses. For Declan Goff, I am Schad. This has been the Viking Age Podcast.